live, so hello and welcome to my seminar, Soft Synth, Hard Work. I'm not sure why exactly I'm getting... all right, this works fine. Okay, what I'm going to talk about in this seminar is a couple of basics about the Farbrausch V2 synth, what it's made of, what you can do with it, and how that basically works. Then I'm going to tell you about the way I work with the synthesizer, and how I set up my equipment to deal with the various trap faults inherent in the software. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of the work that I've done with the V2, and introduce you to the new features of the software. A new version is being released parallel to this seminar. Should be online now, and so you can jump right in after watching the seminar and know how to use the new features. And after that, I'm going to talk about how you can take your music that you've done and mix it properly in the V2 so that it has impact on the big screen, on the big PA. And that's a part of the seminar that's not just applicable to V2 tunes, but to any other tune basically as well. So there's going to be a bit of basic mixing knowledge in there. All right, so I'm going to start with the V2 itself. I use Buzz with the V2, which is basically the most scenic thing you can do because Buzz got lost. The source code got lost in 2001. So it's basically zombieware. It's been patched and hacked and amended by various people. And it's very much like an old platform. But it's immensely powerful, and actually none of the current digital audio workstation softwares like Cubase or Logic have the same kind of flexibility and ease with which you can access practically any aspect of your audio. And the modular system has been used in a variety of other programs, but none of them so far have managed to gain the same quickness with which you can commit your ideas to sound. So this is basically like a very powerful musical sketchbook, just like old trackers, but also a very powerful audio workstation with which you can make really professional quality sound, and not just in 16-bit 44 kilohertz, but also in higher bit rates, so you're ready for HD and everything. All right, I'm using a template for my work with the Farbrausch V2. The first graphical errors, so it's all great. Okay, I think we're going to have to start Buzz again, and please turn down the volume for a second there. This is not how I had planned to start the seminar, but well, you learn something new every day, and this time about Buzz. Okay. All right. I told you to turn it down. So onto the basics. Basically, it's a subtractive synthesizer. What that means is that you have oscillators that create the sound, and then you have filters and an effects rack that take away frequencies from the sounds that the oscillators created. So what you have there is a range of 3 oscillators with a triangle mode, pulse, sinus, and noise, and also some more buttons which I'm going to go into later because those are some of the new features. And you can transpose and detune the oscillators against each other, and also color. That it means pulse width if it's a pulse oscillator, or if you have a triangle shape, you can change the shape of the waveform to be more an up ramp or a down ramp or somewhere in the middle. You can do that with the color slider. And you have separate volume controls for all three oscillators. And then you have two filters that you can use in serial mode or in parallel. And you have the opportunity to use low band and high pass filters, and also notch, which puts a little notch in your frequency and removes a certain range, or all, which is kind of like an equalizer boost at a certain frequency. And then you have the Moog filters. Those are new too, and they sound a little more analog because they're a little less perfect than the other variety of filter. And as you all know, perfection can only be admired, and it takes errors to love something. Okay, then you have a distortion per voice. You have actually two distortions, one per voice and one per channel. So the difference is that this comes before the effects rack, and the channel distortion comes after the effects rack. And you have three kinds of distortion: overdrive, clip, and crunch. And you also have a decimator which can downsample. So if you want the authentic Scream Tracker 3 8 kilohertz sample sound, you can do that also. And the good thing about the voice distortion is that you can also set it to filter mode. So you actually have another filter, a third filter that you can serialize after these two. And for some reason there's no Moog high pass there, but I think you can do without that one because it actually doesn't really remove the low frequencies. Then we have two envelope generators, simple ADSR with an additional sustained time parameter that if you set the sustain very low, the sustained time doesn't really have any impact because there's sustain zero, there will be no output. But if you have a higher sustain time, then there's a gap between the end of the attack and the begin of the decay. Begin of the release, I'm sorry. And that's a hold. That's right. Thanks. What's your name? You get a beer. All right, and then you have two LFOs with the usual shapes. And you can also sync these LFOs to the key presses. And this is a special feature of the V2. You have an envelope mode with which you can set these LFOs to do their thing once and then stay at the last value that they put out. And you can set the phase where it should start. And this one looks like it says raise, but I think it means something like rate. And polarity is the way it impacts the parameter it's routed to. You can't really see it, but this is supposed to be plus. You can see it here, a minus and a plus minus. So if you have set it to plus minus, it assumes that 64 is 0 and sets the oscillator accordingly. All right, and you can amplify the LFOs, of course. Then you have the global parameters. Those are very interesting, very useful. I'm going to get into some of them a lot later, which is the aux section that wasn't in the currently released version of the V2. I'm going to get into that later. And you can also set the send effect amount here. You can set the reverb amount and delay amount here. And you can also say whether you want these send effects to be applied before or after the channel distortion and the chorus and flanger. All right, and then you have the aforementioned channel distortion, which is just the same as the voice distortion, just applied after the send effects. And then you have the chorus, which can double as a flanger if you set the settings accordingly. Oh, is it from me? I hope it's from me. No? All right. You can set how much chorus you want to apply, how strong the feedback should be, and I don't know if you know how a chorus works, but basically it creates a duplicate of the wave that you're using, and it shifts it a little. So it's basically a delay effect with very short delay times. And you can set the delay times here, and if you set it very, very low, you get flanging artifacts. So in that case, it works like a flanger. If you set the values a little higher, it creates a chorus effect where it sounds like the instrument is being played by two people at the same time or by two synthesizers at the same time. And you have a stereo delay, so you can create interesting binaural kind of sounds that reach the ear at different times, and that helps you to place the sound in a 3D environment and not just give it a panning, which only adjusts the volume in the different channels. So if you use panning, you have panning to the left a little. You have a louder sound on the left side and a quieter sound on the right side. But in actual real life, a sound that would be on your left side wouldn't reach your ears at the same time. So if you use this, you can strengthen the stereo effect, and that's a very useful tool. And you can also modulate the delay in not just in the delay time, but also in the pitch. So you have a pitch modulator here, rate and depth, and also phase. Okay, and to top it all off, there's a compression module. I only ever use the peak compression. I'm not sure if RMS functions as it should. The results can be very unpredictable, so I tend to avoid it. But if you want to experiment, go ahead. You heard the worst that can happen already. And it has an auto gain, so you can adjust the gain separately or have it automatically normalize the sound. And you can process the left and right channel separately or joined. And it can also look ahead a bit to see what's coming up and ramp up or ramp down. If you're getting clicks, that's a good tool to avoid those. And then you have the usual compressor settings, threshold, compression rate, and attack and release rates. And here the gain meter. And here you have the number of notes that can be played with that instrument at a time, polyphony. And that's the basic building blocks of an instrument with a V2. And the very much interesting and spicy part is this panel here, where you can set up modulations arbitrarily between any modulation source and any target parameter, which is also a new feature that I'm going to get into a bit later. The global parameters didn't used to be accessible through modulation, but they now are. And it's very useful, for example, to automate compressor settings for that pumping French house kind of sound. Very useful for that. All right, so that's the basics of the V2. And the way I work with it is in this template. Now I wish I wouldn't have done this in a two-monitor setup because it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing right here. But the way I do it is I just set up an instrument here. So let's say I want to have, let's say I just want to have a noise hit. So I set a noise oscillator. and give it a little decay, short decay, and low sustain. So now when I play a note with it, there should be a short noise hit, just like. All right, that was channel number 5. So I go into channel number 5 and play a note there. And nothing happens because, all right, you're expecting noise bursts again? Okay. Ah, there it is. All right, that's a basic hi-hat already. Okay. Beautiful. I just want to show you a quick example of the kind of sound design that I've been doing with the V2. So let's just take a quick look at the loader for debris. I'm not sure if you remember it, so I'm just going to double click if I can and play it for you. It's good for the background. That's the city noises that were used in the beginning of debris. They were all synthesized with the V2. We have background noise, we have cars that go by, and we have cars that honk in the background and kind of siren-y things. So I've lived in New York for a while, and that's what I used for inspiration for the kind of sound that I want. And the way I went about this is, first of all, planning. And I thought about what made up the city noise. And what I came up with is mainly traffic. So cars going by in a distance, the sound of very many cars accumulating from very many directions and just creating that kind of background noise that's very distant, very spacious, and it's not really, you can't really tell where it's coming from. And then you have the sirens and the car horns, which are also distant, mostly because they sound a long way along these long streets that are very, very straight and carry the sound very well. And then you have cars going by, which consists of the motors and the tire noises. So these are all the things that I needed to model in the V2, and that's exactly what I did. So I created the car horn sounds from a combination of sine waves and pulse waves. The pulse waves were very harsh, so that's the harsh bit of the car horn, and the sine waves gave it a little more tone, rounded it off, and to make it really sting, because these are made to make people go hook. I detuned them to be very much out of key with sevenths and seconds galore, so it would sound very clashing and disharmonic. And for the sirens, for example, I used an LFO to modulate the pitch, transpose, and you hear it in background. There's just a sine wave assigned to the pitch of a sine wave. Basically a very slow ring modulation, which you, by the way, can also do with the oscillators, ring modulation and frequency modulation. All right, so that's one of the things that I've done with the V2, and I'm now going to talk about some of the more musical stuff. I don't know if any of you remember seeing Platinum, which is a Farbrausch intro, 64K intro, that we released at, I think, TUM 06. Not sure if that's correct. And the soundtrack was quite well received on Pouet, to my surprise a little. But I like it a lot, and I'm just gonna go right in and play from the climax of the tune. Can you turn it up a little? Just a little? All right. So what do we have here? It's basically the basic building blocks of a techno sound. The bass drum, very prominent. The bass also very driving, and the hi-hat works, and snare, of course, in the traditional techno pattern, so to speak. And we have these kind of spacious chords that make up the melodic part of the sound. I'm just going to mute a couple of things here. All right, what you have here is the bass drum, and you see I left two of the channels playing for that. That's because it's made out of two parts. I'm going to go into that later. And then we have the chords right here. And the interesting thing about the chords is that they use the aux bus feature. So if I go and look at how the chords are set up, it says here that the volume of the note that I play with MIDI is routed to modulate the global aux B send. What that means is that I send audio into an internal aux bus that doesn't get sent to the actual output, but is routed internally into another instrument, which is here the chords master instrument. And I can then set up a very complex instrument and use more complex, even further effect racks and more filtering in another instrument, where I just pull the aux B in from here, from the aux B receive. So the sound, if I mute this, you see that a bit of the background goes away. So if I let just this play, it's very silent. There's hardly any reverb on it. This is because the channel volume is very low. I could up this here. This is what gets sent to the output, and this is what gets sent to the aux. All right. I'm going to show you a very confusing diagram. Just a second. Okay, I hope this is going to work. No, it doesn't work. Let's see if I move this here. Nope, still doesn't work. Okay. The question is, how do I get this to display on the second monitor? I really shouldn't have done it that way. All right. Beautiful. Okay, this is the very confusing diagram of how the aux bus works. Basically, you have two completely separate aux bus varieties, aux bus A and B. They actually do the same thing. They're just separated because you might need two of them. And what they do is they take input from any of the channels. You can send audio into an aux bus the same way you would send audio directly into the output. And but it won't get played directly, but it's stored in the aux bus and it accumulates. So if you go to channel 1 and send something into aux bus, and then retrieve the aux bus contents in channel 2, there will only be what you put in there in channel 1. Even if you put something new into it in channel 3, you won't get it in channel 2 if you receive the aux bus input. But if you have a channel that's higher than 3, you will get what you put into the aux bus from channel 3. So it accumulates along the way, and you always get the full width of audio that's in the aux bus at that time. So the earlier you start with aux busing, the better, basically, because then you can keep more instruments into it. And for example, if you're creating a drum loop and you have 40 kinds of different hi-hats and so on, then you can start at channel 1, 2, 3, have 3 kind of hi-hats and send them into the aux bus. And then in channel 5 or 6, you can pull it from there and compress them, filter them, and so on as one. And that's a very useful thing to have. Okay. I've actually done that in this song. So let me just quickly mute and unmute the right things here. I think this one. Yeah, these 3 are separate kinds of drums that I've used. And I can adjust the properties of them on their own. I can use the low pass filter here. And you hear how the hi-hats are not afflicted. And if I change something here, it's the same thing. But what I've done here is I sent them instead of into the output, I sent them into the aux bus, and I'm using this instrument Drum Master to pull it from there. And if I change something here, it changes all of them together. And I can treat this like a drum loop, and also use the compressor like on a drum loop. So for instance, if I change the threshold here, I get the same effects on all the audio combined, and not just on one of them, which is very useful because sometimes you need to compress 2 instruments together to make them interact with each other. So if you have, for example, a bass line and a kick drum, and you compress them together, the kick, when it sets in, pushes the bass line away a bit because they're compressed together. And when the sound is very loud and the 2 of them are playing together, it's compressed more than when just one of them is playing. All right. At this point in the demonstration, I actually wanted to start a couple of sounds from scratch to show you something about layering sounds. I'm not sure this is going to go so great because I can't really see very well. I'm just going to show you my back for a little and try to make it from this side. So, hope you like my back. All right. I'm just going to go right ahead and spill that here. Okay. So, what I want to do is show you how you can use layering and to create sounds that are lively and strong at the same time as being interactive with the sounds around them. What I've done here is used my V2 template, and I've already set up a bass drum. So If we start playing right now, we get a simple bass drum with a little flourish there, which I'm going to take out because I don't really want that at the moment. Now to see where I kept it. All right. Something's wrong there. Ah, there we go. Taking that out. All right, so this is pretty much a straight bass drum kick line, usable for any kind of dance music. And we obviously want to have a bass to go with that, so I'm going to set up a quick bass line that moves around that with 3 parts that are going to be affected differently. I'm going to use a simple saw wave here to create a very basic bass line offbeat. If it should play. Oh, all right. There we go. And I got to set the sustain time a little, sustain volume a little lower. All right, that sounds a little shitty, so I'm gonna give it a little more oomph there by using a second detuned and a third that's also detuned. Alright, and then I'm gonna use the new Moog filter. You can now hear it squelches. Alright. It's a little bit hard to see because I have to use the higher screen resolution. The minus and the plus here kind of disappear when I put the window in a different position. Now you see it, now you don't. All right. So that's a kind of basic bass in the middle of the frequency range. I'm giving it a little of a high pass, so it doesn't come too much into the lower frequencies. I've got a setup here with a spectrum analyzer. So if I just mute that real quick, this is the frequency response of the bass drum. It peaks somewhere around 58, 59 hertz, which is good for a deep and loud kick. And it also has a little oomph up there. I'm going to go into the bass drums a little later. And if I now take a look at the spectrum of the bass, it sits around 900 hertz and extends all the way down to 20 hertz. So what we don't want to have is a bass that steals the bass frequencies from the kick drum. So what we're going to do is use a high-pass filter to shape the sound a little, which doesn't work for some reason. All right. That's because I didn't use it. All right, so you see I'm extending it down to about 100, 150 hertz, and then it drops off very steeply. This is a logarithmic scale, so this doesn't look very steep, but it is. Now this sounds a little boring because it's just a very basic pattern. So I'm going to use a little more complex pattern here. This is called a rolling bass line. and it's a very simple way to make a bass line that isn't totally default, but also sounds good even if you can't hear what you're doing at the time. This is your basic trance bass line, actually. And now you'll note that the bass doesn't reach very far down, so what we need is a second bass that goes down there and gives it a little more room in the lower frequencies. So what I'm going to do is take the next instrument, channel 4, I'm just going to name these real quick. Bass drum, another bass drum, and the bass. Actually, that's the mid bass. Now I'm going to do the low bass here. And I'm going to use a triangle wave for that. So I set the color to 0, which gives it a perfectly triangular waveform. The triangle is a lot like a sine wave, but it has a little more harsher frequencies, so it's got a little more tooth to it. And I'm going to use very low notes for that, so the bass really gets down there. And if I just solo that real quickly, you can hear that it's not quite a sine wave, but pretty close. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, check that it doesn't interfere with my bass drum peak, which is kind of here. So I'm taking out some of the very lowest frequencies, and then I'm going to go to the overdrive and give it a little more edge. And because that's a little bit too much edge, I'm taking it down here with the low pass filter again. Alright. I don't need any resonance there. And now I can use the amp envelope to give it a little more of a organic feel, not just a single note that's going, but something with a little movement in it. All right, and now I'm going to go here and into the compressor settings and make it a little more prominent in the mix. I'm adjusting the ratio to cap off very steeply and set the threshold so that a lot of the frequencies are caught in it. Very low attack so that it immediately catches on if something's playing, and a relatively low release because the sound doesn't need to be kept down for very long after it's been playing. All right, now we have two kinds of bass playing and the bass drum, and that's already a pretty well filled frequency field, and we've layered the bass sounds to have a low component and a high component that play a little bit different patterns. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to use the aux bus to layer these into a single instrument and work with that on its own. So I'm just going to mute the bass from here, and what I'm going to do now is here where it says volume routed to global channel volume, I'm going to change that to aux bus, where is it? Aux bus A sending. So that was the low bass, and for the mid bass I'm going to do the same. Okay, now you hear nothing because nothing is going to the output. It's all going to the aux bus. So what I'm going to do here with this instrument is pull the aux bus contents into this instrument with the aux bus A receive slider, and then because it won't play if there's nothing playing in that channel, I'm going to set up a long node there. And because I don't want this sound all the time, I can turn the oscillator off here. Okay, you hear the two basses that are coming in here. And what I'm going to do now is compress them both together. So I'm going to turn the compressor on, set the attack very low, and when I adjust the threshold now, you hear that they're both compressed together and very crunchy and work very well together. Okay, and I can also use the flanger to introduce some artifacts in there if I want. You hear how both of them are affected together. So that's maybe useful for kind of fills or stuff like that. Okay, and now if I put the bass drum back in effect, I can use the output gain of the compressor for both bass sounds to adjust the volume very comfortably. And what I'm going to do now is take a look at the global settings. You have the reverb volume here, the reverb settings and so on, and delay settings. And you have a final global filter, low and high cut. So if I go this way, you see in the frequency response that it's very much a long curve and not a steep cut. And that's very useful if you have too much bass, which can easily happen. So you just set it to somewhere around 12, 13, 14, and it's a nice little EQ roll-off to take off the lowest bass frequencies, which can sound very muddy on big audio systems, like on a big screen. Okay. I'm just going to quickly save that, and I'm going to show you some more things about mixing in the tune that I actually wanted to enter in the executable New School compo here, but didn't get to because the player didn't get finished in time. So I'm going to show it to you guys, and you are the only ones to get it. All right. So what I've done here is take all these things that I just told you about, and I created a song with them, and I'm just going to start playing it. So here it is. This is actually somewhere in the middle already. What we have here is a loop of the main part, and I've used basically most of the techniques that you just saw in the seminar. So we have the bass drum that is made up from two parts. A high part and a low part, which I'm going to get to in a second. We have the drums that are set up in an aux bus system that got pulled from the aux bus here and affected together. And we're using different kinds of bass here, and also different kinds of layered leads that play variations on the same melody to fatten up the sound. And What I wanted to tell you about the bass drum really is that there are some characteristics in a bass drum that that define the way it sounds. Let me just quickly put that up there. So if you have a bass drum, it consists mainly of two parts, which is the kick or the head. That's at the very beginning of the waveform, and then a long boom or tail. And these two parts don't have to be in the same instrument. That's why I'm using two instruments for my bass drums, because I can use more parameters to shape the sounds if I do it in two parts. So what I have here is a beginning with a quick attack and a kind of noisy sound. And that's mainly in the 200 to 20 kilohertz range. And there's actually not much boom in that. The boom comes in later. This is a couple of milliseconds, maybe 10 to 13 milliseconds here. And the whole rest of the file, up to 70 milliseconds, is just a long sine wave tail. And those are the two basic building blocks from which a kick drum is made. So what I do is I create two instruments, one for the sharp initial attack and one for the soft tail of the bass drum that sets in very much later. So if I take a look at that real quick in the V2, here's my lower bass drum part, and here's my higher bass drum part. We have a noise generator here, and the second noise, doubling it up. If I solo that, you hear that's just the upper part of the bass drum. And what it also does is it takes the aux bus input, aux A, which I feed in with the lower part of the bass drum, and then compresses them together here in the compressor with a rather long attack, so that the initial higher part of the bass drum retains its sharp kick, and that the later parts of the bass drum are affected by the compressor. And if I just quickly mute the rest here. It's a bit of a hassle if you have many instruments and no mute solo. Okay, so what you have now playing here is the bass drum made up from those two parts. The low part, I used 3 slightly detuned sine waves here that I affected with the LFO in the pitch. So the basic part of the tail of the bass drum consists of a sine wave that is pitched down. So you start somewhere around 140, 160 hertz, and you pitch it down to about 60 in a very quick manner. So what you have is this pew sound. And if you do that fast enough, it becomes a kick. And just the low part. I'm going to take the low part of the kick out for a second. So that's just the high part. That's right. That is basically what I just showed you in noise. Yeah, the other part. This what's on. Ah, the low part, of course. Just have to quickly change that.
Excuse the interruption. If anyone has any questions, I need you to talk through this microphone so that people can hear it on the stream.
Oh, all right. Okay, so if anybody of you wants to ask any questions, you need to ask the man with a microphone so the people on the stream can hear you. All right, I'm going to change that to go to the channel volume so you can hear what it sounds like. This is just a very soft boom. And the actual kick is all in the other file. in the other instrument. And this is just the body and the boom. All right, and if I put that back again and set the volume lower again. Now you can hear how they work together. All right, I think that actually covers the basics of what I wanted to tell you. And with these building blocks, you should have the instruments to make your own highly rocking tunes and make them sound good on big PAs as well. And I hope you enjoyed the demonstration, and I hope to hear more good intro tunes from some of you as well. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and the man with the microphone will come to you. All right.
Okay, just one or two questions because we need to get out of here by 6.
All right, I've been a bit too...
Sorry to be getting on your nerves.
Too long there.
Is the current version of V2, is sidechaining possible?
Sidechaining is... well, I'm just going to quickly explain what sidechaining is. Sidechaining is when you have a compressor and or some kind of other effect that takes the input from one channel and uses it as the basis for its output on another channel. So if you have, for example, a kind of pad sound, and you want it to pump along to the music, like in French house, as I explained earlier, you would take the kick drum and use that to control the compressor, so that when the kick drum plays, the pad sounds would be compressed at that point in time. So what you can do is fake that using the aux bus. You can just put all the things that you want sidechained on an aux bus, pull the aux bus from pull the output's content, and use a volume envelope there. So that's the basic way to do sidechaining with the V2 at the moment. There's no native capability to say I want my channel 2 to modulate the compressor of channel 8 or something. All right. Anybody else? Did we have any questions on IRC? No. All right. Well, very well then. I've been going on too long, I think. I just want to quickly say, or type, because that's not easy to remember. It's a bit of a... Ah, there it is. Okay, somebody was kind enough to do it for me, because I would surely have done it wrong. So the updated version of the V2 is available right now at www, and I can see why that is deprecated, .leadhackers.de, and that's KB's site. And you can all jump right in with the info you now have and use the new features, and maybe want to come up with it next year. All right, thanks for your attention.